This video has been cut to better fit YouTube's content policies and to shorten the video by removing several off-topic rants that we had. If you'd like to see the full uncut version of the video, please make sure to check out the Rumble link below. And also, while you're at it, go ahead and check out the Discord link and the Patreon link in case you got money that has a hole in your pocket, that's burning a hole in your pocket, and you want to argue with me because I don't know what I'm talking about. Thank you for watching.
Like I said, completely unprofessional with this shit.
Yeah, sounds about right.
All right, mandatory intro. Hello, dingle shit farts. It is I, back with another piece of media that exists. Here today with probably the biggest hater of Warhammer 40,000. Say hello.
Bigger hater. All right, that's a bit of a more of a compliment than anything else, really.
Well,
That's
first,
how people see it.
I gotta let you know, you're not the biggest hater of 40K because nobody will hate it more than me.
Damn, I see how it is. So it's more of a contest.
Oh no, there's no contest. Nobody can beat me. Anyways, this is NELLOP. He does 40K content on the funny video website.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make sure. You want me to like? No, fuck. Of course you probably do. I'll go ahead and I'll plug your channel in like the description whenever I upload this abomination.
That is fair enough.
So say hi to the dingleweeds, all two of them.
Two of them. That's the audience.
Yeah, it's like my mom and my
Damn.
cat, and that's about it.
Damn, that is the whole audience into that. Oh, there isn't much to say about other than just like I just critique about 40K and talk about like certain specific topics about 40K. And I know some people just get really infested with the titles and the thumbnails, but in the end, those are just fucking clickbaity as shit. But the main thing is about the video when I talk about that certain subject.
And then you get that one guy who thought you hated VTubers.
Oh. Ah, yes. I hate VTubers with a passion. Meanwhile, plays VR chat for about 3K hours. All right, cool. All right.
Oh, damn.
Apparently, I'm a hypocrite. Ugh.
Damn.
No, I just don't have a problem. But when it comes to the VTubers topic, yeah, no, like, then again, most people will just look at it and they're like, this guy's a hater and all that shit. But the way that I processed making that video, the only mistake that I did was the just showing a little bit more evidence, just showing the actual experience when you're watching these VTubers watching 40K stuff and what they're saying. That is the only critique that was actually pretty valid, where I was like, oh, yeah, could have done that. But at the same time, though, when I was making that video, I did this all in a day. I was like, look, I've already covered this topic before. Here are 3 videos. Go and watch it. But I know most of them won't, so they're just going to argue with the title or the thumbnail.
Exactly.
So most of the time, I might as well troll in the comments, since it's funny because these motherfuckers doing disingenuous stuff and then just arguing the title or the thumbnail or strawman me to death what they think I said, and then they expect me to return the favor and play nice. I'm like, motherfucker, I'm gonna troll the shit out of you. And everyone's like, how? What was the good example? There was someone who was giving a 6-paragraph long in one of my videos of why 40K is no longer grimdark, but they were saying some stupid shit. And then all I replied was K. But everybody else in the comments after that, they were just saying, how are you being this rude? This guy is having a really good, valid points and all that. And I'm like, no, he didn't.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was quite funny because all I said was K. I didn't even like rip him apart or be mean. I was just being trollish as usual.
It's an actual woman moment. I want a divorce. Okay. Wait, what? Why aren't you responding? And this kind of leads into what the topic of this video, if you can call it a video, more like an abomination. This kind of goes more into the topic of what we were going to cover today, because I suggested talking about the average the average modern 40K fan type individual, and kind of how it could link to fucking like, you know, shit like, you know, being an NPC and like mindless consumerism and shit like that.
I mean, you can yeah, you can already look at that in 8th edition to a certain extent. You can look at Reddit like from 5 to 6 years ago. But there is one small thing they changed. Unless that attitude is still there. back in 8th edition, there was a lot of people that really didn't want to hear about politics. And I remember when they talked about Arch Warhammer, they really was like a little bit same with me back then, but it was more of like they talk about 40. He talks about 40K, but he talks about unnecessary politics and all that.
Yeah, people just wanted
So,
Warhammer and they didn't
yeah,
want politics involved. That has definitely
but
changed drastically.
that has changed. Yeah, that's what I noticed. I was like, that shit has changed drastically. I'm like, yeah, I don't even remember now that anyone says like I don't want to hear politics. Now it is us versus them mentality, and now everything is just
It's like
going to ticks
politics is
up.
all. It went from I just want to enjoy 40K to I demand politics. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I saw it too because I think if I'm not
Could be
mistaken,
defense studies.
yeah, well, because if I'm not mistaken, you got into 40K around 8th edition. Do you remember like
Mm-hmm.
what time, like what year abouts? Hi, kitty.
2019. I know
Okay.
8th edition was a little bit further back. Actually, yeah, 8th edition was like 2017, so I probably
Yeah.
was around very subtly in 2018, and then got into it in 2019 and started doing like Horus Heresy and shit. Yeah, I'm never doing that shit again.
Okay, funny enough, since we were talking about VR chat earlier, I got into 40K around early 2018 through VR
Mhm.
chat. It was actually VR chat that got me into it.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah. Well, at the time, it was funny because that's when VR chat was still fun and funny shit happened and we could go into a world with a bunch
Do
of
you know
Bane.
that way?
Yeah, back then when you could get away with shit like that, we used to grab like Baneblade models and we just raid worlds screaming Baneblade.
They still do that on occasion, but I
Yeah,
just don't hop on that often
it
anymore.
used to be so much more common. Nowadays, that's like they really cracked down on that shit. It doesn't happen anymore. But
No more fun.
no more fun. Exactly. And that's kind of another thing too. Is like I kind of watched the shift happen in part through that VR chat group where we had it started.
Hmm.
It was started with a bunch of like, the OG 40K fans, where they'd been around since like 5th or earlier. They just wanted to enjoy 40K and have fun. And then I watched as it slowly got subverted by a bunch of these people who are trying to push like woke politics and crap. But there's also like another
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing I have going on. And I'm going to kind of like this video, I kind of intend to just kind of let you talk more about stuff and I'll throw stuff in on the side. But I've
Hmm.
also noticed there's alongside with the whole increase in politics becoming a driving force in the 40K community, I've also noticed a lot of just like along with that, just people that just mindlessly will consume and mindlessly just praise everything. And obviously there's the YouTubers who have built their
Mm-hmm.
career around this, but I see it outside of there. People who just mindlessly buy up the slop and mindlessly praise the lore and just don't even question it, to the point where it's like,
It
do
is
you even
now,
remember a
yeah.
week ago? Like it literally gets to the point where I have to wonder if these people can remember a week ago. Like, I think a good example
Mm-hmm.
would be for years and years and years. And for
Oh.
a bit of context with me personally, with 40K, really just with anything in general, I tend to hold back and restrain my desire to be pissed with it, because I don't want to just immediately jump into the, oh, this pissed me off, we don't like it anymore. So I remember back in the day when like late 8th and early to mid 9th, there's a lot of people saying they're gonna try and they're gonna get rid of their firstborn and shit. I'm like, well, okay, I know
They
they're
will.
not. Well, I was sitting there like, okay, I know they're not marketing firstborn anymore. They've moved on from that model line. Fair enough. They said that the firstborn will still be playable, and I haven't really seen any attempt to do that. And I stuck with that until 10th edition, where they made 99%, or not 99, I'd say 90% of firstborn unplayable. And that was when I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, screw you. But I've noticed a lot of
Especially,
other people. But
yeah.
I noticed there's a lot of people who went from, oh, they're not replacing your firstborn, and immediately switched over to, yeah, well, firstborn were old and they need to replace it. And, just defending. Like, do you remember literally the day before when you said that they were never gonna, replace firstborn? Cat, stop trying to eat my corned beef hash.
I don't. I never believed they were, because on one hand I'm like, people. I think it's more of the quote unquote safety guarantee that was never going to happen, and then look at 10th edition now, where they're just pushing it forward when they should have done that in 8th edition, in my personal opinion. Because
What
I'm
do you
like,
mean?
just rip off the band-aid.
Oh, just immediately remove all firstborn.
Yeah, might as well. Because if they really wanted to push that Primaris model, might as well rip it off. But then again, that comes from me where I'm just like, where I'm just screaming at them. I'm like, yeah, actually, it's the scene of Dr. Manhattan where the dude is just yelling at him. He's like, do it! And it gets exploded.
Just do it! Make your dreams come true!
Yeah, that's what I think about. I'm like, dude, if you want to get rid of Firstborn, just fucking do it. Like, the new audience wouldn't care.
Well,
Other than the old
when
audience.
they introduced the Primaris, there was still basically nothing but the old audience, and that's a reoccurring theme I've noticed with GW. They want so hard to shake off their old market, but they can't because they're not really getting a new market that'll grab on. So they end up having to backtrack or do something to make the old audience happy, despite openly hating them.
That is the one thing that is funny. Now you mention that.
No wonder my corned beef hash wasn't cooking. I didn't have the thing on.
Damn.
Anyways, as you were saying,
the one thing that was actually funny is Space Marine 2. This is where I discussed about to Gamza about Space Marine 2. Space Marine 2 has some subtle woke elements, and it has a trans rider, right? So just even thinking of that, I'm to a certain extent, I thought it will be a little bit woke, like wokely a little bit praised. But one side is like, this is the most masculine game ever, and the other side is like, it's not woke enough. I'm like, what the fuck are you on about? But
I think, I don't know if you remember when this happened, but I remember this pretty well. When they first, because funny enough, there was 2 dramas involving the trans writer or whatever. There was one in like early 2020s where it was discovered, and she was saying a bunch of dumb shit on Twitter. And then she ended up getting kind of, I think what happened is Saber Interactive, not to phrase Saber Interactive, sounds like they've got plenty of their own problems, but I think what they ended up doing was they basically put her on a leash and told her to shut her mouth. It's like, stop talking about your damn politics, we're trying to sell a game. And then the second one came around closer. So I have a sneaking suspicion. Actually, it sticks in my head there was a rewrite somewhere along the line. So I have a feeling that Space Marine 2 would have had a much more woke story before she got stuck on a leash, and then what she did put in had to be more subtle, or else it wouldn't have made it in. That's my theory.
Well, that's a very interesting theory.
Well, something similar happened with Helldivers when the whole Baskinator situation, when she started saying a bunch of woke crap and tried to call Helldivers woke. Arrowhead immediately dragged her off to the side, told her to shut her fucking mouth or she wasn't going to have a job, made her private her Twitter for a while, and made her remove all of her stupid woke flags from her bio for a while. And she hasn't been talking about that stuff since, because same thing. Arrowhead was trying to sell a game.
Exactly. You're there for a job, not for your activism.
Exactly.
But
I don't even think she's the head of their community management anymore, but that's Helldivers. That's not Space Morons.
Yeah, no, like some people think that that trans writer got fired. I'm like, is there any confirmation? Yeah, is there any confirmation? But I do agree they might have put it like a little bit of a leash, maybe, but it's still subtly woke, because you have like a character called Sarkana, contributed nothing to the story other than being obnoxious, and then you have the I don't know if you watch like other quote unquote Warhammer animations. The guy who is Asian in Space Marine 2 is the same guy who played as a salamander in the Pariah Nexus animation.
I don't watch much 40K content. I haven't in a while. I used to, but not since 10th edition, honestly.
Okay, so just think of that Asian guy in Space Marine 2, but he's charcoal black because he used to be a salamander. So I was like, I can't get you out of my head. And then there's like Ronnie Coleman, lightweight baby, but it's more of the budget version, since he gets angry and talk behind their commander's back, and I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? And plus, there's like other stuff. If we're going for lore wise, is like Okay, this is a Tyranid assault, right? Obviously, it's not of a big thing, but still, they usually use like the Shadow of the Warp. Why would they go mindlessly go to a planet without their like best effective weapon? Because they ain't stupid.
Yeah.
And then there's like other elements, like their telepathic power shit. Is like, oh yeah, you kill the Hive Tyrant, you kill everyone. I'm like, that's not how the Force works.
That's even I know that, and I've actually started to forget 40k lore.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, no, like simple stuff like that. I'm just like, yeah, no, this doesn't really make sense. Why would they even do that?
And I think
So
with like
yeah, like
the I think with like the stuff where the Space Marines are involved, what it
mm-hmm.
really sounds like to me is just this person didn't know how to write a war story. Because I get the idea of wanting to humanize the characters. Fair enough. I don't want to read a thing about a bunch of just a bunch of. Look, I love Bionicle. My least favorite character has always been Kopaka because he has the personality of a calculator.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that, but you still need to write them like soldiers. Look at how like Sergeant Major Johnson was written. There's
Yeah.
just talk to soldiers and you will understand how these guys are going to behave. You're not going to have all that stupid ass drama. You might have dick
Yeah,
jokes,
no,
but
yeah.
that's about it.
Yeah, but as I discussed this with Gamza, like we both kind of came to the agreement that like these Space Marines were taken as children and got psycho indoctrinated for war and bred for war.
They're
And
literally
these guys are
Spartans. They're
going to
just
be
like the Spartans from
yeah,
Halo.
maybe that. Yeah, actually, that's a very close comparison. There was
That's
another
exactly what
yeah
happened to the Spartans. So yeah.
another comparison someone did. Uh, I didn't even recall the movie name, but I just remember visually, and it was a movie from 1998 called Soldier. So it gives the mentality of how a space marine should act. But the problem with the 40k audience, the one that I've encountered by far, they always talk about stories, how it makes sense for this chapter to do this, and or certain characters to do this, but they never discuss of does this make sense for the setting? Does this make sense for
Well, I
Grimdark?
think a lot of
And
them just
I've
don't
never
understand how soldiers
yeah,
behave or how war stories go.
that is true. But also it goes back to the setting, and this is why I just go back to the codexes because they talk about very simple and simple and straightforward. Like these are space marines that are psycho indoctrinated for war and all that, and this is a jump pack assault. This is what they do, and this is a rhino tank. This is what it does. It talks about like many things, very straightforward. Like you don't need any complex, dramatic character development or anything. Like it just gives you like a whole summary of the basis of how Space Marines are. Of course, it will talk about characters and all that, but when it
There's
comes to like to Space Marines, that's what they should be, like cold calculated, 200 IQ might
there
as well, because they are beyond human to a certain extent.
there is a
Um,
reason that people like Hell's Reach. It's because Hell's Reach perfectly depicts what a Black Templar is going to act like. The Grimaldus doesn't go
yeah,
through like a character arc or growth or anything. It establishes who Grimaldus
mhm,
is, how he's going to handle stuff, and what he
exactly.
does. And that is how you write a war story.
And honestly, he should have died on Hell's Reach.
Hey, look, I might
On
not be into
Armageddon.
40. Look, I might not be a 40k boy anymore, but I still like my Templars. Okay, we don't talk shit about Grimmy.
No, I don't talk shit, but it's just more of that when you have these massive characters who lived for a very long time, major characters like Manius Kalgar, Grimaldis, Helbrecht, or whatever. I think some major characters need to die. That's just me.
Yeah, but look at
Because
what happened when they did kill one. They killed that one commissar dude that had like the orc arm, and then everybody was pissed off about that.
nah, that was off screen. They didn't even say how he died or when.
Fair
Some people say,
enough.
oh, he might have died from Angron. Like they just cast him aside, and people assume that. Well, no, this goes back to the theory that if he's really dead or not, because in the ninth edition Imperial Guard Codex, um, people looked at it and they were like, oh, he's not in the Codex anymore, so he might
I
as well be
thought
dead. And then there
I
was like
thought it said
an
that
image for it.
somewhere. I thought it was confirmed that he died.
Yeah, and then in Darktide, people were just talking to each other. It's like, oh yeah, I heard Yarick was in the warp or some shit. I'm like, oh fuck me. Okay, it's gonna be one of these moments now.
Oh, that's fucking. They can't even write that. And see that. I don't get why these current 40K fans. I don't get why the current 40K fans eat this shit up. Like, what is this driving force that makes them think this is good? And that's the thing.
Because it is that they don't know anything else. They haven't read third and fourth edition. They haven't read like old lore, so they haven't like backtracked like how I did to a certain extent. Where after the Fem Studies, I fucking backtracked hard. I was looking at old codexes. I was doing the contrast principle and all that. And for me, it's just much easier to have a better understanding when it comes to 40K and Grim Dark. But these new fans who have no fucking clue, and all they know is they just have to go on YouTube and look at 40K lore where they can watch it for free. And at that point, it just becomes a subjective thing where they're like, I like this guy's talking about the lore, even though it's being recycled for the last 30 years, is because he's fun.
Well,
And
even
yeah.
then, you gotta. The only way I could see this making any sense is if these people had no context of good to begin with. Like, okay, I got into
Yes,
40K at 8th edition. Now, granted, I might not be the greatest example because Gamzel was the first
I
40K
will
YouTuber.
interrupt just a little bit. Um, that's right there just because 40K fans have never experienced anything good because
Oh,
I'm like
even
almost
outside of
old at this point.
40K?
Yeah, because what was the really good games for the last couple of years? Because the most games that were really good, that were between two in the year 2000 until I'll give it a stretch 2012. And then after that, it started to go slowly downhill until it became worse and worse. And the newer audience that comes in, they never had the the Call of Duty World of War experience or the Halo 2 experience. Like they never played these games before or
Well, okay,
really
well,
comprehend or understand that kind of shit. So what
I
I'm saying
don't.
is
Well, hold on,
they
because most of the people, they have. If that's the case, they have to be 18 or younger, and I know that's not most modern 40K fans, because anybody
hmm,
who's even, I'm 26. Anybody 6 years younger than me will have at least played Halo 2.
the newer 40K audience, especially in 10th edition, I think they just don't have a resume,
They have no They have
or
no concept of good content.
yeah, no concept of good content, and they haven't previously experienced like we used to have. So how could they really understand what is good or what is actually grimdark? Even if I defined it, like I even did one of the videos, even if I defined it, I don't think they really comprehend because they never looked at an actual good grimdark book story. And there's Berserk. I know it says
I
dark
love.
fantasy on the website, but it is grimdark.
I would say that Berserk would fall into that. I remember we before you made that video, we talked a lot, and honestly, for the two people watching, go check out his video on Grimdark. It's actually a really good video. I remember
The audience.
the conclusion that I kind of came to at least was, yeah, no, Grimdark is basically just dark fantasy if it's not fantasy.
Pretty much.
And so, yeah, no, Berserk is definitely one of the groundworks for a modern
Because
understanding.
yeah. Because grimdark is a subgenre of dark fantasy, but they already have like a very similar vibe to it. But then again, you can take it at face value as well. It's grim and it's dark.
Let's take the dark fantasy and push it somewhere else.
Exactly.
That's Grimdark.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting thing, a thing that I've noticed personally, at least.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of times I've noticed these GW suck ups are also
Mhm.
tournament players. Have you noticed that?
What specifically? Because unfortunately, I'm not too heavy into the tabletop scene, which I really
Okay.
want to, but it's just more of like finding people and all that.
So kind of like, okay, so you're familiar with how esports went with like Halo, for example, right? How Halo got so popular it
Uh,
became an esport, and then 343 started gearing it towards being an esport, and then it stopped being good.
I can make that comparison with Overwatch, so I do understand to a certain extent.
Similar thing happened to 40K, to my understanding, talking to some of the older geezers who've played the game. It got 40K. Obviously, there's tournaments. There's big tournaments. It got so popular that there were a bunch of tournaments and whatnot. And so, what ended up happening over time is a group of people. And if you look at how GW tries to balance their game too, I've noticed two consistent things. One, they don't play test their game. Two, they're balancing it entirely around tournament results. The balancing choices they make, the rule choices they make absolutely no sense until you put it in the context of they're basing it off of tournament results. And
wouldn't you also say they do it based on min-maxing as well? Like this new unit is so powerful, go get it now, and then after that, we're just gonna nerf them.
Why do you think they do that?
Just to min-max the product.
Where do you think the min-maxing comes into play? Tournaments.
Could be, it could be from tournaments or
that's where it came from. At least in 40K's place, it came from the tournaments, because what ended up happening is as the tournaments became a bigger part of the hobby, a lot of people started getting into and gearing their entire time with the hobby around the tournaments. They don't play casually. And so what they start doing is, and this is what I've seen, a lot of the people who sing the praises of, oh, this is the greatest army you've always wanted to start one, yada, yada, yada. That actually comes more into play with tournament players, because they're trying to keep up with the meta of the game. That only exists because tournaments became popular, mind you. So they're trying to build up the next big tournament-winning army. And so when GW wants to sell a new tool, or a new toy, I should say, they build it up and market it to the tournament players, because they're going to fork over they're whales. They're going to fork over all the money because they want to win the tournament. It's not about it's not about the casual fun. It's about winning tournaments. And so they min-max the shit out of things, and that's how you get armies that'll wipe you in 2 turns and shit, like a demon, like a dude that brings like 2 demon princes in one army, and then dumb shit rules like the 9th edition Demon Codex, where you got an extra set of special abilities that basically said I can shit on the table and win.
Or play World Eaters, where you can just wipe off the enemy team in the first turn. I love Angron.
Exact shit like that. Shit like that comes specifically from the tournament players. And it seems like there's a correlation between the two. I wanted to see if you kind of noticed that yet.
I didn't look it too deeply into it, but I knew to a certain extent it was praising a lot more with the 40K tournaments, and it's always about the higher players. But at the same time, I focus more on the GW aspect, as in like, okay, why they're min-maxing certain units in the tabletop. Are they doing it just to get more money off the product? Like a good example is like 9th edition squats, the Leagues of Votan.
Oh, I almost forgot about that. Well, here's the thing. Remember, GW hosts most of the big tournaments.
Yeah.
So, in part because they want direct control over that area. And that's why you get stupid stuff where it's like, oh, you did a head swap, it needs to be approved. No.
Yeah. But even with the Leagues of Votan, they were released like not even in 2 weeks. They were like, "Oh shit, we did a mistake. Oopsie."
I like
everybody
there was a joke.
Leagues of Votan.
There was a joke going around where they had to buff the squats because they hadn't won a tournament in 30 years.
Sure, okay, I'll go fuck myself.
That was the meme. That was the meme. They hadn't won a tournament in 30 years, so they had to go buff the squats. Even though the fact that they didn't win a tournament in 30 years is because they weren't even a playable army for 30 years. But that was the joke at the time. But yeah, no, I have noticed that to be a correlation, and I've actually had the mispleasure of playing against tournament players and hearing wonderful lines like, "I don't care if the rule set is good, just give it to me and I'll play the game." Actual quote from a tournament player.
Yeah.
All right, give me a theory here. Give me a theory here on how you think we got to the modern 40K fan. Other than, okay, So yeah, we got like the part of it is because they're just not used to like good quality. Is that it,
Mhm.
or yeah, give me a full retrospective. Give me your whole conspiracy theory on how we got here.
Well, one hand, it was quite evident that in eighth edition, that GW wants to bring in the new audience, and because the new audience, they come in, they don't know much about 40K, they don't understand, so it's easier to misinterpret a couple of things that comes from 40K YouTubers. So it's like, oh, you don't know about 40K? I'll explain to you about 40K, but I'm gonna bullshit or over fluff a little bit of a couple of things
I
in
remember
order for you to make it more enjoyable, quote
I
unquote,
remember
than to
Gamza
say it
used
as
to
it is.
bring up that a lot of times some of the, and this was in 2018 and whatnot, that a lot of times lore YouTubers would make things up or twist things to kind of push their own personal interpretation of it as lore. Because it sounds like
Mm-hmm.
even before 8th, there were issues of the lore being starting to be inconsistent.
Like
I say
Lewitton.
start, but
Mm-hmm. And I like people say Lewitton reads his books and all that. I'm like, how can you be so sure? Really, like honestly, how can you be really so sure about Lewitton? And even when he mentions the books, he doesn't say specifically, where he got it from specifically in the book. But then again, that's just me being nitpicky because I'm comparing Lewitton to Pontius because Pontius looks into the books and he actually goes much more in depth and actually goes against like the criticisms that people are trying to object against.
I mean, if you're
But
gonna be a
meanwhile,
lore YouTuber, you should be doing that as the thing. If you're not going autistically in
eh,
depth on the lore, why are you a lore channel?
yeah, true. But at the same time, people don't really understand or comprehend how long it takes for you to read a book and process and then quote unquote make a script and then record and edit the video. And it takes at least like a month.
Oh
A
yeah,
month to
no,
read
it
the
takes a
book.
long time.
Yeah,
But I'd
yeah.
still,
It
if
takes a
you're
month
gonna
to read the book.
be, I would still say if you're going to be a lore channel whose end goal is to teach people about the lore of a franchise you claim to enjoy, you should be doing that. If I were to start a Bionicle lore channel right now, that's exactly what I would do. And do you know how much media I'd have to go through in order to do that?
All
There's
of them.
the there's the novels, there's the comics, there's the movies, there's the online serials, there's
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of shit that I'd have to go through. More than just a book, and I'd still do it if because I want to accurately,
Mm-hmm.
display the thing I'm
Yeah.
into.
That's why, to a certain extent, I'm doing the quote unquote daily upload videos, is because I know for a fact that I cannot cover every single topic, so it's much easier to isolate them into one video and then just push that out. And if there's something that I already mentioned before, I can actually interconnect some video topics and then just put it into that video.
Right.
Just like how I did in my VTubers, which nobody's got to watch. So I'm just like, oh, okay, I'll go fuck myself then.
Go watch his VTuber video.
Mm-hmm.
Go watch his
It's
VTuber
very
video, mom.
hateful. It's a very hateful video. Like, I very despise them. Yeah. Damn. Then again, like, another theory. Yeah, no, that's all I can think of is just mainly just the fans because they don't know anything about 40K. They allow GW just got away with it. They were just like
Well,
testing the waters,
it
and they're
doesn't
like,
help
"This is
that
what we do."
GW doesn't seem to care about their lore, so they don't care about it, and they have a group of people who don't know about it equals
Hmm.
bullshit. And then it doesn't
Yeah.
help that like there was a lot of the old guards who were trying to push their own interpretations as lore. So I think that would be that at least explains where a lot of the misunderstandings with it comes into play. But
Hmm.
here's a question: how did this lead into people just mindlessly consuming and accepting it? Like, how did this lead into the current 40K fan getting offended at any criticism of it and just blindly accepting all of it? Because we got theories.
I
Like, I can
think.
say how we got to the min maxing through like the tournament stuff. We can say how the complete misunderstanding of the franchise came through the new blood mixed with GW not caring and et cetera, et cetera. But how do we get to the anomalous entity? SCP-69420, the 40K fan.
um. Yeah, I think this is the one thing I think what we discussed with Gamza. I don't recall if I had it on the video or not, but we discussed this, and it's more of that 40K fans do not have a purpose. They do not have a they're just confused beings. They don't know where they are, so they just latch and attach onto materialistic things in order to make themselves valuable. So when it comes to 40K, they're just attaching themselves into 40K in order to feel special.
Because it's
Right?
there and they need something to.
Yeah.
So
Like, yeah, you're
to
not
try
John, you're
and
John Warhammer 40K.
reword and summarize this in a way. And just let me know if I'm kind of picking up what you're putting down.
Man's got a strong man me.
I'm gonna straw man him. So like I said, to kind of just generalize it, see if I'm kind of picking up what you're putting down. It almost sounds like this is kind of a similar thing to, like, why a lot of people in the far left seem to not have a personality. Like something happened or stunted them or something caused them to not form a proper personality or not know how to, or however. I can't say I don't understand how somebody doesn't form a personality because I formed one, but it seems almost like they somehow failed to, or their personality formation got stunted, and so they started latching onto, in this case 40K, to try and build up a personality with it. Like
It's
they're
like
trying to
when you talked
substitute a
about
personality with 40K.
It's like how you talked about the encounter that you had, that VTuber Gura Gura.
Yeah.
So
For a little bit
the
of
only thing I can
context,
think
because
of,
like the cat and my mother don't know this. I
damn.
have interacted with Gargura, the VTuber, one of the more popular ones, in VR chat, and not to call him a bad person. That's not what I'm doing here. They just,
No, they're horrific.
yeah, they're a terrible person.
Have you seen the shock ray killings?
But they didn't really have any personality, and when people tried to engage with them, it's almost like she didn't know how to respond. So she'd give, it was almost like talking to it. Actually, no, it's not like talking to a chatbot. Chatbots actually have more personality, but she would respond with very kind of generic, bland answers, and she couldn't engage in a conversation very well, and she just didn't really have much of a personality.
Is there any examples that you remember, or is it because it's just that bland? It was just that forgettable.
It was just that bland. I remember talking with her friends group more than talking with her. It was just that bland.
Damn.
I can genuinely tell you the conversations I was having with her group of friends. I could not tell you the things that people tried to bring up with her, because it was just that boring.
I will push this a little bit further. It's not just the left that are lacking personality, but to a certain extent, at some point, the right is going to lack personality as well.
I think we're already
not sure
seeing
when.
it. I think we're already
Yeah,
starting
we're
to see
already.
it a bit.
Yeah, I have a video. I have a already have the audio recording and all that. And it's just specifically talking about grifters. Ooh, spoilers. And,
oh boy!
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I just
let me
mainly
know when
picked.
that one comes up, because that has been a big gripe I've had with the right so far. Is there's so many Endymion.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's that. Yeah, I picked like the three main guys, but I think I just talked about more on two people, and I was just talking. Well, maybe I might not be able to cover everything, which
You could bring up
whatever.
a little bit of it here, but
no, like in the video, I was just mainly talking about that these to a certain extent, these grifters are doing more damage than any good to 40K, because all I see, like in the aftermath, when they were talking about the whole controversies and all that, to a certain extent, it seems like they were here only to talk about the massive controversies. They never talked about like any other like 40K topics, and most of the time, it just seems like they're more of a messenger. But even with that, they always talk about like the issues than the solutions. And even if they bring the solutions, it is already a universal agreed opinion, like what you should be doing. Like, for example, don't give your money to GW. That's the pretty obvious one. But instead of just going like
basically
more
they
in
can't
depth.
actually give an actual solution, just the generic the generic. Yeah, we're already doing that answers. Now, see,
Okay, if I don't have a solution to it, I'll be honest. Like, if I don't have a solution to it, I'll be like, look, here's a problem. I personally have no fucking idea how to solve this, because it's probably beyond me. but
The
I'll be
answer
more than
to
willing to
how
hear
to
it.
fix 40K is to let it die and let GW die. Enjoy what it was before fucking bullshit edition,
Die.
and let a new game take its place. Because essentially, I'm being a bit of a dick here, but essentially. Okay, not
You
to
are
brag,
what you
not
eat.
not not to brag, not to make myself sound like some sort of intelligent guy. I'm not. I live in a fucking apartment. I took an economics class. My sister started a very successful business. I have picked up on things. And
Hey.
what we are looking at, it's kind of like Disney right now, where GW has gotten modern companies in general, but you see this especially with GW right now. They focus so much on consistently growing. They focus on like maximum growth in minimum time span. And what they don't
Mm-hmm.
focus on is longevity of their company. So what they end up doing is they bloat
Yep.
their company so fast that it can't contain itself and it implodes. We're currently watching the beginnings of it imploding, and genuinely
Mm-hmm.
we're at that point where there is no proper way to really fix 40K because of that, because GW is about to
Mm-hmm.
burst at the seams. So genuinely, what needs to happen is GW needs to fail, Warhammer needs to fail, and it needs to leave a power vacuum so something else can come in. That is genuinely what needs to happen, because this is no longer a how do you fix
Mm-hmm.
40K problem. There is no fixing 40K. This is a how do you heal the market problem. Because as
Mm-hmm.
is, with the current dominance of 40K, it is very hard for any other games to really grab hold, which is
Yeah.
that's not good for any economy. GW is technically running an accidental, I'm not going to say that it's a purposeful monopoly, but they are in a monopoly like situation, and that's, as long as that is there, they are not, 40K is going to be the same way. So it just needs to implode and 40K needs to die. So let something
Mm-hmm.
else take its place so 40K can go back to being niche and it becomes the thing where people remember being into it, and that will actually preserve it better.
Yeah. No. Oh, I think then again, they could just go and sell themselves to Amazon, and that's gonna be even worse.
I don't think that I honestly, I don't even think that'll save shit. I don't
Oh,
think
that won't save
GW
shit.
wants to be bought out. I think they like selling their stocks, but I don't think they want to be owned by another group. They want to build themselves to be the other group that owns people.
I just have a feeling that at some point when you're no longer the big player, at some point they're just gonna submit their knee. And keep in mind, this is Britain, so the males are more femboy and the women are more masculine. So,
And
I
they're all
mean,
more Muslim.
inshallah, brother. But yeah, nah. Like another way, but then again, this is just most likely impossible. Is that have a different so the people who are ruling on top of GW are pretty dog shit, but if they replace them completely with a new crowd that actually understands 40K, which is very unlikely, then that would quote unquote save 40K. But at that
You'd
point,
need a
how are you gonna
hard
fix
reboot.
the whole, yeah, and at that point, how are you gonna fix all the mess that happened during 8th edition? Like, it's gonna be a whole new reset.
Yeah, that's
Woo!
the thing. If in the hopeful dreaming scenario where a group of fans actually gets into control and they start working on 40K, you would need a hard
Mm-hmm.
reboot. The lore has been too badly butchered to the point where even trying to sift through and correct, there's too many contradictions, there's too much lore, you're going to end up running into the same problem the Catholic Church has, where there's just so much shit that you can't go through all of it. So
Mm-hmm.
if that were to happen, the only solution would be just a hard ass reboot. And I don't think that would
Yeah.
do very good either, because that's just going to piss a bunch of people off too.
Well, they're gonna piss off a bunch of people no matter what. It's just more of like which one will
Mm-hmm.
be more beneficial for the products than the audience, because the audience comes and go. Dude, I have people even in my Discord server or on my YouTube
To talk
channel. They
about My
always
Little
come and
Pony,
go.
I mean,
It's
yeah.
whatever with that. I'm just like, okay, whatever. A bit cringy. I don't see anything off.
I do. It's a
Um,
little girl's show.
it's yeah, well, then might as well just freely roast the fuck out of him. But other than that, like, I'm not gonna outright be like, anyways, purchase this motherfucker.
Hang that motherfucker now! I got the rope right here.
Exactly.
Hi, kitty.
Um,
But
yeah, no, like that's the only thing I can think about. Like, but yeah, no, like I like some people think when a GW goes down, it will be open source and all that. I'm like, that's not gonna happen.
no,
GW would never allow that. And also they would especially they would rather be under, like, let's just say Amazon. Let's just say if it got really bad. They'll rather be
they'd
like
sell it off.
under Amazon. Yeah.
They'd rather sell themselves off. Yeah, what they're talking about. The only time that happens is if a company just ceased to exist, and even then, you need to. Even then, it would default to a rights holder. There's probably somebody within GW where if they collapse, the rights to 40K are going to go to them. It's
Mm-hmm.
possible that it won't, because you're familiar with the Wolfenstein franchise, right?
Yeah, yeah.
id Software did not originally own Wolfenstein. It was originally an old DOS game from the 80s, and the reason that id Software was able to make it was because the company that had originally developed it had gone under, and it was up for sale. That would most likely be what would happen. 40K would either end up in that scenario, or it would be in limbo, and you'd need to buy the rights to it. Or more likely, yeah, they try and sell it off to somebody like Amazon or BlackRock.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, kind of bringing this back. So yeah, I think.
Yes.
Would you think it's? Would you think that my assumption is accurate? Like, these people basically, for whatever reason, they don't have a properly developed. Because bringing it back, because you brought up the whole Gura thing.
Yeah.
They think these people, like, they haven't properly really
Yeah.
developed a personality or a way to interact people that would show whatever personality they might have. So they've just started to
It's
try and build a personality with the things they're into, and thus they don't like criticism of 40K because it's their personality and they take it personally. Was that kind of what you're saying?
how so how can you build a personality without having people skills? And I think that's the main thing. Like, they lack the social people skills. And that's why I was bringing up the example of Guru Gura, is because she knows how to entertain an audience on streams, but she doesn't know how to speak to people on one-on-one, like close confrontation. So she only knows, like, because she doesn't know how to counter with people in order to do that. And for me, I'm kind of like the opposite. I know how to talk to people. I just, like, sometimes I just struggle a bit in order to entertain when it comes to live streams.
Right,
But
right. Look, I'm going to tell you this right now, because as somebody who's watched a lot of people try to start streaming careers and seen the ones that actually worked out, interact with your chat, be you, and it helps to be a goofball.
It works if you had an audience, but it doesn't really work when you're just like a very early start Twitch streamer. So you might as well just speak like a schizophrenic for a while until you get an audience. That's what I did for a bit.
I'd say don't even try streaming until you've actually got an audience.
Yeah, but that is more of if someone just really just wants to do Twitch streams first and then promotes his Twitch streams, and then promotes his Twitch streams on YouTube and then just keeps on doing it. Right?
Right.
So,
but yeah, and I think we're kind of bringing it back. I think you're right. These people really don't seem to know how to interact with people, like, at all. They know how to interact with 40K.
Yeah, they know the memes. They know how to talk about, like, 40K stuff. But anything outside of that circle, they do not know how to have a basic conversation.
Oh, then the question is, how the hell did we get so many people like that? Because I don't even think, I know that a lot of people point to COVID, but that would require these people to have been kids.
COVID is one of them.
COVID is like
one of them.
Probably responsible for more recent things. But I can't. This is my issue with people saying, "Oh, COVID did this." A lot of the people, especially with, like, for 40K, for example, most of these people would have been adults by that time. So whatever happened to them happened to them pre-COVID.
What about the 40K animations that used to exist, the fan animations before they went for a purge? You know, that drawed a lot of people in of how fascinating the universe was. You had Sodas, you had Astartes, you had many other fucking animators as well that I can't recall on top of my head. But if I did
I mean, like, the bland personality, lack of personality type thing more than anything.
It's just more of that. It's just simple. simple, funny, haha, goofs and laughs. It's like what Breaky from Adeptus Ridiculous says. Entertainment first and before accuracy that he says on his podcast. I don't know if he still does it anymore, but when I used to watch him before the Fem Studies happened, that's what he usually always mentions. And I think like the only thing they know, I think it could be also chronically chronically online as well. So all they know is speaking in memes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Like
I think it's just
they
limiting
never had
their
a proper interaction with society. It's always been,
just in people in general. Yeah.
you know, I'm actually going to use something that Lego talks about, or at least used to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how much of the history of Lego as a company are you familiar with?
Zero.
By the time you get to the 90s, Legos almost went bankrupt. And this is what led to Bionicle, because they had to try and experiment and branch out to a new market, and Bionicle was what they did to do that. But Lego was marketed and sold to what they referred to as the Lego kid, which was the quiet kid who didn't have a lot of friends, probably didn't really socialize a whole lot, who just wanted to sit in the corner by himself and play with Legos. And the problem is, once you got to the 90s, that was less of a thing, so they had to branch out, and that's where we get things like Bionicle and Lego Star Wars and whatnot.
Mm.
The only thing I can really think of is that a lot of these people are, to some extent, some type of version of the Lego kid. They, for whatever reason, haven't socialized a whole lot. The difference being the
Mm-hmm.
Lego kid was the more quiet, nerdy type who could at least interact when he had to. These people just genuinely... Man, a lot of these people are in like their 30s and late 20s, so I know damn good and well that they've had some level of social interaction. They're not... If they're chronically online, it started in 2010. I don't know, maybe that's enough to do it. But I'm just sitting here like,
Maybe.
it's like a spoiled brat version almost. That's the only thing I could think of that would lead to this. Because normally the quiet kid doesn't turn out to be the snob ass. These people are snob asses.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what's causing it.
Could be.
That's just a theory though, a dipshit theory.
Yeah, it's a dipshit theory, and it's just easy for people just to blame one thing's like it's the internet and all that, and I'm like, yeah, but there's always other parts as well,
Something had to
and
push
that's
them to
very
the internet.
Yeah. So like with 40K, we can talk about the major big parts what led to 40K losing its grim dark, but there's always these small things that elevated to losing its grim dark or just to accelerate it even faster than before. So that's why I look at more into specifically with 40K YouTubers. Because to a certain extent they're responsible for it. And then when we go always back to the major controversies like the Warhammers for everyone and then also the Femstodies. It was like a controversial a little controversial pick like the female space marines kind of topic.
Mm-hmm.
That back in 2019, but then that died off.
Oh, that topic came up at least once every 2 years.
Oh, did it? Oh, all I remember was
yeah.
the
Oh yeah, no, it was okay. And I'm not making this up. Now, this is my personal experience. I could be wrong with the math on this, but what I've noticed is that almost every 2 years on the dot, female Space Marines comes up again. So it was last year first.
Yeah.
Before that, I remember it being in like 2018 and kind of into the 2019. I heard about it happening in like, a couple of years before that. It's a reoccurring conversation that comes up every like 2 years. Or at least it's either every 2 years or once a year, but it keeps reoccurring.
I think I'm just guessing at this point, and it's just maybe they just want to test the boundaries. Test the boundaries if they accept them or not. And it's still a no.
Well, I remember it's like a few months before that it had come out in like one of the rule books for Horus Heresy. There was a big stink over the line of Space Marines have always and always will be men or something like that. And then like a couple months later, this happens. It's like,
oh, wasn't there a fucking? Oh no, you reminded me of something that either it was an article or something, but they were talking about like how Space Marines should be trans, and I'm like, I'm like, shut the fuck up.
Shut
Like
your
they are
bitch ass up.
transhuman.
They're
They're
not even,
transhuman, but they're not trans. What they think about?
dude. They're not even transhuman. Somebody did a
They
complete.
transition to be bigger with steroids.
Somebody did an entire artistic video on this that could be boiled down into transhuman is defined as trying to modify yourself to become something that is not human. Space Marines are specifically augmented in ways to enhance things that make them human.
All right, what
With the
about
exception of, like,
mentality?
what do you mean mentality?
Because they don't think like ordinary humans. They think very
It's still an enhancement.
very militaristic.
That's just an enhancement of your average human soldier. That's why I'm saying, okay, if you want to write Space Marines, talk to a normal Marine and write them like that, just with a bigger, just smarter.
Yeah, just a little bit smarter, just a little bit enhanced.
Just
than
write a Marine
human.
that doesn't eat crayons, and that's a Space Marine. Because everything
Yeah.
with the exception of, like, you know, a few of the extra organs that give them extra abilities, and even then, that stuff is supposed to complement the enhancements that they have, which are just enhancements to human aspects. They are supposed to be the pinnacle of a human. Transhuman would be something like the Mechanicus, where they're trying to become something other than a human.
All right, you know what? True. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think some people might misinterpret it a little bit because they think, oh, normal Marines, they always talk to each other and talk shit and all that. And I'm like, no, that's not how they work when it comes to with even the normal army. But even the normal army, I just see them as Imperial Guard mostly. But even with that, I just see Space Marines just being just a little bit more, a little bit much more serious, much more strict, very harsh as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because through whole their life, their whole the whole training, the whole going into wars and all that should be like an everyday Tuesday, you know? Heresy bad, don't trust the witch, you know, do not talk back to your command or else you get your neck ripped open by chaplain because you just hesitated for a millisecond.
You know, unironically, Helldivers are better at the whole fucking don't being soldiers thing, and that's just because we shoot each other for the most minorly, you know, traitorous thing.
Yeah, but the problem is that people apply satirical into the 40K as a whole because of Rogue Trader, or they compare Starship Troopers, and whatever fucking assumptions they want to make, they put it into 40K as a whole. Even though evidently in 3rd and 4th edition, maybe 5th as well, might as well put a stretch, their tone is completely different compared to like Rogue Trader. It's just
people
very serious.
I think the people making that claim don't actually understand what satire is.
Yeah, that's why I had to look for the definition, just because at this point,
people. I think that a lot of people confuse satire for commentary, and and even then they only look at something to see if it's a commentary based on whether or not the person making it says it's a commentary. Which GW right now is saying that it's always been satire because they're trying to push the political shit, and this gives them the wiggle room. Yeah, this gives them the wiggle room to say, "Oh yeah, it's a commentary
40K
on
is no canon. Why do they even have to mention that? They're just like, we can just do whatever we want."
Dude, if 40K has no canon, you can just make up. Anybody can make up whatever the hell they want, and it's canon.
Someone pointed this out very well.
It is now canon that Chaos has a weakness to peanut butter.
Excellent. Someone pointing this out very well is that if there is no canon, what IP are you really defending?
Oh, that's where things get funny. GW is very open about, like, you know, the whole we're not selling lore thing. They want it to just be the models. That's what. That's part of
lore.
Yeah, they're on. GW said once, we're not selling lore, we're selling plastic models, and that's how they want it to be. They want the lore to be so back burner that it doesn't matter. Which is another reason why I think there's no way to actually fix Warhammer in its current state, because they have actually genuinely thrown out the story. They just want it to be a game. And
I vaguely remember that. Huh.
and you want to know? Okay, hot take time, I guess. I kind of agree with that approach, just not in the way they want to do it. I think with a game like 40K, and this is kind of going into what you were saying,
Mm.
there should be world building, and that's it. There should be a built up setting with notable events and notable characters, and
Yeah.
that's it. It stops there, and the reason that exists is to give you an excuse for the setting, to give you an excuse why your 8-foot tall super soldier looks like he's a Catholic. I
Mhm.
genuinely think that would be a better approach to 40K.
I think that's why it fits so perfectly with third and fourth edition, especially like the most obvious one is Necrons.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the complete difference in between them. But yeah, no, like third edition is perfect, leaving the mystique into the 40K universe and giving you just enough information to understand how they work, what they're doing, and why.
Mm-hmm.
But no more than that. And that's what the Horus Heresy should have been, but they keep spook feeding everyone, and I'm like, oh, I'm so burned
What
out.
happened was 40K
But
started writing books, and the books started doing really well. And
yeah,
that's a thing that I've noticed. I think a lot of people's arguments with like 8th and 9th edition and like anything post 7th, a lot of the arguments that I hear people make about it, you can really boil them all down to one argument, which is they progressed the story after almost 30 years and I didn't like it.
I like that argument, but nope,
Well,
they didn't.
well,
They
no,
didn't do much.
well, they're trying to. Because we
Yeah.
went from just kind of setting stagnant of shit was happening and nothing was really changing, to all of a sudden they're
Mhm.
bringing Primarchs back, and the galaxy split in half, and all of a sudden there's technological advancements, and this is happening, and that is happening, and then all of a sudden there's a second Leviathan invasion, and they're trying to build things up, even if it's not really a whole lot going on per se, they're trying to progress the story, and that's where I think a lot of the problems that people have come in, because I think, so from what I've gathered, with the exception of the books, 40K sat stagnant. It was just a setting. There might have been things going on in the setting, but without the books, really, there wasn't really anything going on. It was just kind of sitting at that stagnant point of everything sucks and everybody's shooting at each other. And then all of a sudden, GW started trying to progress the story. And from what I've seen, and from my looking, and from the people I've talked to, the downfall of 40K, you could pinpoint it right at that decision. Right at that decision of we need to progress the story. Because what starts happening after they start trying to progress the story? Then all of a sudden you get the shitty lore. Then all of a sudden you really start to see them ignoring their own lore. Then you start getting contradictions, and then it starts getting political. Before that, before the Primaris and all that shit happened, what was the biggest controversy that happened? Models were expensive, and they put a Space Marine inside of a Space Marine. That was it. That was
Yeah, and maybe a little bit with the Primarchs, but I had no issue with it. But majority of
that
time,
was
it was
before
about the
the.
Primaris.
Yeah, no, I'm talking before that.
Yeah, fair
Yeah,
enough.
before that, the big arguments was they put a Space Marine inside a Space Marine, and the models were too expensive.
Yeah, it's just the same talk. Now it's even twice as more expensive now compared to the last fucking 5 years.
Like I said, right after, like you can pin it right at that decision. Right after they started deciding this needs to be a continuous evolving story. Right at that point is when you start getting the problems with Primaris, and now they want to replace your firstborn, and now they're making it political, and now they're making female custodies, and all of that
Yeah.
stuff, from what I've seen, started right at that point. And that also seems to be the point where you start getting the modern 40K fan. Obviously, you were starting to see that a little bit more before, like in 7th edition, to my understanding. But again, I've talked to quite a bit of old guard. From what I've seen, that even didn't really start becoming a thing till right at that point. Because that was also the point where you had to decide if you gave a shit about the lore or if you were just there for the game.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that probably makes sense. It's just, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to remember something now for Gore.
Oof.
I forgot.
He forgot. Oh, kitty's in her kitty hammock.
Yeah.
She taking a nap.
Yep, Primaris, 8th edition, and all that. Yeah, kind of a gore. Because, yeah, no, there was so many issues even. Okay, yeah, now I remember. Like, they can still progress the story even without Primaris, like the whole new technological advancement. Like so they could have introduced armor, or if he didn't introduce armor, right, they could have just bring Primax back. That would have been fine. Or they could have just progressed the story, making like new crusades with the Primax and all that, and then some of them fail, some of them succeed, and at least you have a story.
You want
But
to
people
know
really
the
but people really focus too hard on the story needs to be entertaining, it needs to be interesting and all that. And I'm like,
no, the story
guys,
needs to be
are we
good.
forgetting the setting? Yeah.
Well, the story needs to be good. The entertaining, everything else will come along with that. But even like the lore thing, I know there's been a lot of things of like, oh, how to redo the Primaris to work better, and I've heard a lot of theories of like either it's just the armor or don't even make a new lore reason. You could make the Primaris work, and I'm gonna give one reason I've heard nobody explain, and I know it would work.
Mm-hmm.
Have them be an invention of the Emperor. Have it be something that when the Horus Heresy was kind of getting to a real tight spot, he came up with a new type, like just he was getting ready to Thunder Warrior the Astartes with Primaris, and he died before he could initiate the project. And Call didn't invent them; he stumbled upon them and got in contact with Rowboat, or as I like to call him, Rhombus Doorknob. I will
Yeah.
never use his official name, and just have Call stumble upon a stash of these Primaris the Emperor was working on, contact Rhombus Doorknob and be like, "Hey, yo, your dad was working on something. You want it?"
That
Or
would
even
be
just
a
have the,
much
or even
better
just have the,
story,
or
but
even just have the fucking Emperor tell it to him. We already know that that Rhombus Doorknob went to his dad's fucking grave to get his sword and got a bunch of visions. Have one of them be, "Son, I buried a bunch of dudes on a planet. Go get them or you're gay." Just kidding, you
fuck.
are gay.
Yeah, but at the same time, you expect too much from writers to think that smartly. But even with
No,
that,
I know they couldn't think that
the
smartly, but I'm
yeah.
just saying that would have worked.
Now the issue with that is it's more of the timing happening because I think back in 2017 they were still running excuse me, they were still writing the Horus Heresy books, weren't
I think
they?
they're
They weren't doing the Siege of Terra.
I think they're still
So it's
writing the Horus Heresy books, aren't they?
yeah, they're writing the last book.
Oh, really?
They're
Okay.
yeah. Oh, it's about like 9 books. I'm like I'm not gonna read the last one because it was meant to be okay. So there was meant to be one the end of the death, but they split that into 3 parts. So instead of 6 books, they just pushed it to instead of 5 to 6, they pushed it to 9 or 8 or 9 books now. And now they have an extra book after the quote unquote Emperor's death and all that. Just the and it's more of the opening of the Scouring age. I'm like, oh fuck me. Anyways, but the issue with that is like back in 8th edition, the Horus Heresy was still written, and I don't think they thought of that way ahead in order to do it and do that. But even if they do that, I think that will remove a little bit of the grim dark element, I would personally say. But at the same time, it does make sense where Mechanicum finds something and they're like, "Ooh, what's this? We can stumble upon this."
I think,
Could work,
and so
but it
here's
would
the
be
thing.
better if there were Space Marines.
Right. Well, and here's the thing too. I think you touched on something. I know we're kind of going on like the problems with GW, which is kind of relevant actually. So we're gonna keep going on it for a bit. This is a
Yeah.
sign of why GW needed to have better control, keeping all their eggs in one basket, or they had too many cooks in the kitchen. Because if
The copyright shit.
if you have people writing the backstory for the setting that's currently going and they don't even know what's going on, then you're gonna run into issues. Even with like again, I know I keep going back to Bionicle, but Bionicle is like the autistic lore thing of my life. Like I said, look it up or just ask me anything. It's autistically insane. But they had there was a small group of people that only got smaller as it progressed, mind you. But there was a small group of people who are in touch with every aspect of lore to keep it consistent. GW should have been doing the same thing. They should have just had a small group of writers who are in touch and it's like, hey, we're going to get ready to try and release this, write a story so it was consistent. As for the grim dark thing, I think you could do it and keep it grimdark. Like, 'cause I think a grimdark setting can have just a little moment of hope occasionally and still be grimdark.
Yeah.
I mean, even Berserk, yeah, dark fantasy, grimdark, same, two sides of the same coin. Berserk has its moments of hope. Berserk has its moments of, oh hey, things are going good for once before it fucks it all up. You can have your moments of hope just for reality to remind you that shit still sucks. So you could have like, holy shit, the Emperor was working on this, we found this could help us, and they get it out there, but it doesn't fix the problem. It just gives them a more reliable Space Marine at the end of the day. The other way to look at it here is with the direction, and this is a more realistic approach at it, with the direction that 40K is going, I personally genuinely find myself asking the question, is potentially shedding the grimdark a way to save it? Because it seems like 40K can't decide if it wants to be grimdark or a medieval fantasy in space.
Well, the issue is they keep saying in their codexes, even in 10th edition, I have it in my shelf. Yep. Like they keep, even in Space Marine 2, even though the game was in production since 2019 and they did the whole, Tidus is dying, he has to become Primaris instead of a Dreadnought. But even with that, they still say in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. So they have like an identity crisis because you have these people, they're not even fans. They're fans for hire. They don't understand the property. So, and they're just making whatever the shit they want to the point that it's no longer what 40K was meant to be. And yet they're still lying in front of the customers and saying, yeah, no, we're still grimdark. Like, believe us. Yeah, no. Yeah, all this is just grimdark.
And it works because most of these people have no idea what the fuck. They sit there and go, "Hey, not to get political or anything, but what the fuck?" I know. I'm sorry, I lied. Of course they want to get political.
Not to get political or anything. What the fuck is grimdark?
Not to get political or anything, but what the fuck is a grimdark? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I got like what, 15 minutes ish before I need a.
I was actually about to say we've been going for an hour and a half. I think we've covered the topic pretty well.
I can talk lots of stuff, but yeah, no, I think that will be good for it because I need to do some video editing.
For a video essay, it's good. So, all right, Mom, make sure to check out NELLOP'S channel. Is there anything else you'd like to plug?
Other than like just talking about like my YouTube channel, at some point I'll maybe come back to streaming after like 3 fucking years of being inactive and all that. But then again, sometimes I do question like, what do I even want to do with streaming? Because sometimes when people think of streaming, they immediately think of gaming and all that. But I do know that not many people would get into like gaming on Twitch. That's just me personally. But I can do the talking. Talking is very easy, but at that point you need an audience in order to do that. So,
well, you got an audience. It's called YouTube. They stream on YouTube.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I think. We have
Gamza streaming on YouTube. It's a nightmare. So,
from what I've heard, it's a nightmare if you're trying to build a community on YouTube for streaming. But if you're like already have a community and you're streaming, it works good. And you've got a community, sir. I've seen your channel numbers, boy. I've seen your channel numbers, boy. You can't hide it from me. Trying to act like the little guy.
There's other problems. Like, you've seen Gamza's streams. Like, he can't do certain music. He can't say certain things. So on Twitch, you have a little bit of leeway.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get you.
Just a little bit of leeway.
I get you. But yeah, so
Mhm.
yeah, no, like I was saying, go ahead, check out NELLOP'S channel. Check out his stuff. I strongly suggest his Grim Dark video.
Yeah,
That
Gem's
was
a light here.
I would definitely recommend checking that one out. And check that out. Check out my other stuff. At this point in time of recording, it's not uploaded, but it will be by the time this is uploaded. Me and my buddy Dylan
Indeed.
played a porn game and made fun of it. So go watch that.
Damn.
Dylan said
That's
if that video
insane.
gets 1 view, we're gonna turn it into a series, and I'm gonna hold him to it.
Should have made an actual challenge. Make it to 10 views. Because
Yeah,
view is easy.
no, I should have, but then his dumbass, like, if this video gets 1 view, it's like, boy, it's gonna get 1 view, and it's gonna be me watching the video when I upload the damn thing.
Exactly.
So, I'm gonna
It's always easy.
Yeah, exactly, he made it too easy for me, but I'm holding him to it. So yeah, go check that out. I'm probably gonna make a Patreon and a Discord and shit. Might as well. So check that out. And yeah, that'll do
I don't
it.
know how to do goodbyes.